Trauma, How Mindfulness Can Empower Children and Rebuild Communities by Atman Smith, and Andres Gonzalez, founders of the Holistic Life Foundation. I'm Emma, one of the book club program specialists coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts. Let us know where you're from in the YouTube chat. If you have any trouble commenting, make sure that you are subscribed to the Trauma Research Foundation's YouTube channel. So, settle in. I'll tell you a little bit about the Trauma Research Foundation, just a little, and outline what you can expect from today's event, a special event because we do have the authors here with us for this discussion. So the Trauma Research Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to bringing together a community of clinicians, researchers, and educators to support finding and implementing approaches to help heal those whose lives are affected by trauma. Our book club is currently in its second year, and it's been a wonderful experience so far. Our growing team has been continually learning how to create the best experience for both panelists and our streaming audience, like you. In this series, we have two moderators to facilitate discussion, Atra Tarfa and Dr. Keisha Sierra-Bois. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge that time, attention, and care. I'm excited to introduce the TRF team, or I should say reintroduce for those of you who may be joining us since the prior weeks. Introduce the TRF team that makes this production possible: Pat, our media manager; Connor, our media specialist; myself, and my incredible colleague and amazing partner in this program, Liz. Each of us are program specialists. All right, so today is the third episode in this three-part series. Each week brings together a group of community panelists to discuss Let Your Light Shine. So for our special final episode today, Ollie Smith, Atman Smith, and Andres Gonzalez are joining our conversation for a live Q&A session. We invite our virtual community to participate in the discussion. Feel free to use the YouTube chat function to share your comments throughout the session. Our team at TRF are all tuning in with you, and we'll be sharing some comments after each discussion question. If you have trouble commenting, again, make sure that you are subscribed to the Trauma Research Foundation's YouTube channel. And please note that this discussion is not a substitute for, nor does it replace professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any concerns or questions about your health, you should always consult with a physician or other healthcare professional in the mental health field. We'll also be sharing information about each panelist as they respond or as they provide or offer their questions to our authors. Panelists are invited to apply from anywhere in the world and from every background, and we truly welcome voices representing a diversity of experiences and thoughts. So to help ground us in this conversation, we're happy to offer a study guide as a companion to your reading. Please download the study guide from the link in the chat. And we now want to reintroduce our book club moderators, Atra Tarfa and Dr. Keisha Sierra-Bois. Our first moderator, Atra Tarfa, is a highly skilled and dedicated certified trauma recovery coach, supervisory level, recognized by the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaches. As an instructor with her extensive knowledge, empathetic nature, and personal experience, Atra provides invaluable support to trauma survivors as they navigate their healing journeys. Drawing from her own experience as a trauma survivor, she founded compassionate coaching for complex trauma to help individuals reclaim their lives and thrive beyond trauma. As a board member of PATH, a program that addresses addiction and underlying trauma using an internal family systems-informed approach, Atra demonstrates her commitment to holistic recovery. She actively contributes to the program's mission of providing comprehensive support to individuals, recognizing the interconnectedness of addiction and trauma. Currently serving an 8-year term as a locally elected district supervisor, Atra brings a self-led, trauma-responsive voice to local policy, ensuring the needs of families in her community are heard and represented. Through her role, she advocates for the needs of trauma survivors and actively works towards creating a supportive and inclusive environment for all. Our second moderator, Dr. Keisha Sierra-Bois, is the CEO of Dr. Keisha Cares Consulting and Coaching and specializes in public speaking, diversity, equity, inclusion consulting, and trauma-informed mindset coaching. With a passion for racial literacy education and leadership development, she brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and global perspective to the table. Dr. Keisha's accomplishments have made her a prominent figure in the realm of public scholarship. Through her TEDx talks, Instagram, YouTube, international conference lectures, published academic works, and programmatic initiatives, she has emerged as a catalyst for change, championing racial literacy and inclusive leadership. Boasting over 20 years of experience, her scholarly pursuits and advocacy work have garnered a discerning global perspective on educational research and diversity. Thank you for being here in support of this community, Atra and Dr. Keisha. And now I'm going to hand it over to Bruce to introduce our authors.
Amazing day, everyone. Again, I'm Bruce Dixon and the CEO of the Trauma Research Foundation, and it's great to have you here today. And on behalf of our board of directors, our investors, our staff, our team, our allies, just wanted to give a really heartfelt thank you to the HLF team and to everyone else who's contributed to bringing this group together tonight. So yeah, really special night. Really great to be able to share this space with Ali, Atman, and Andres. And they are the founders of the Holistic Life Foundation, which is a BIPOC-run, Baltimore-based 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to nurturing the wellness of children and adults in underserved communities. Established through social entrepreneurship in response to the need for mental health services in underserved communities in Baltimore, HLF currently works with 5,000 more than 5,000 Baltimore City public students on a weekly basis. The organization's goal is to improve social, community, educational, and emotional outcomes in low-income, underserved communities by providing multifaceted programming that empowers youth, families, and adults through yoga, mindfulness, and human and environmental health. HLF's social, emotional, behavioral curriculum encourages youth and young adults to develop their inner lives through yoga, mindfulness, conflict resolution, teamwork, restorative practices, self-care, and to appreciate the value of learning, community, and stewardship of the environment. Wish we had some of that when I was in school. So if we ever get a chance to go back a little bit, I'd love to jump in some of the programming also. Since its inception, HLF has served more than 100,000 youth and adults through yoga, mindfulness, and environmental-based programs and trauma-informed training. The organization is also committed to developing high-quality, evidence-based programs and curriculum to improve community well-being. These programs have been facilitated in many different settings, including schools, detention centers, drug treatment centers, mental illness facilities, recreational center, group homes, colleges, senior centers, and wellness centers across the nation. So I did want to say thank you for all that you do, right? And we really look forward to a deeper partnership with HLF. We've got some nice conversations brewing in the background. Thank you for all the work. Thank you for being here tonight. And again, we're excited to be a part of the dialogue tonight. And with that, Dr. Keisha, take it away.
Well, thank you. So today we are discussing, we are in part 3 of Let Your Light Shine, How Mindfulness Can Empower Children and Rebuild Communities, by our distinguished guests. And in part 3, I'm going to let it shine. This is the last section of the book, and we're covering specifically chapters 15 through 18. In this section, Uncle Will, my favorite character, or one of my favorite people in the book, because this was a real person. I can't wait to hear more about his life. In this section, Uncle Will's teachings emphasize doing the work without focusing on results. And he has some of the best ways of saying this, a lot of which included expletives, which I'm a big fan of. Allowing love and light to flow through as a vessel of service. Ego ties to results, leading to self-doubt when they're not seen. However, meditation is advocated to dispel negativity. Uncle Will's role was a reminder, and he kept saying that, as a reminder for helping others access forgotten universal knowledge. And I say that slowly with intention, because oftentimes we rush through really powerful things, and there's so much depth in the simplicity of that. Uncle Will's role was a reminder to help others access forgotten universal knowledge. The essence of the work is to empower individuals with skills to save themselves, rather than attempting to save the world directly. Reciprocal teaching methods are highlighted, transforming all students into teachers to spread meditation and breath work. love as a powerful force is emphasized. The aim is to infect people with love, especially in challenging times. As you will see, one of our distinguished guests has the outfit that like really highlights this further. Love is an important concept. In part 3 of the book, we're going to center on spreading this work outward, empowering others. Kids lead classes to empower and heal trauma. The future, including COVID and societal change, remains uncertain, but the focus continues on broadening the reach and empowering students to share their knowledge. Expanding horizons is a crucial aspect of this process. And so with that understanding, we're going to start with the first question. See if that's up on the screen. No worries. Our first question is by Julia, and she asks, knowing that you have something important to offer your community, but not always having that vision be noticed and valued by the systems that control the spaces that you want to bring it to, how have you all made moves, changed minds, and persevered to create change? And I can share that again if it's not readily legible on your end, because I may have just the wrong view. Yeah, okay. Would you like me to read that one more time, gentlemen? We're good? All right, well then the floor is open. Would love to hear your take on that.
Oh, that thumbs up was for reading it one more time.
Oh, now I know, not a problem. I thought that was, we're good, we got it. All right.
And after you read it again, I can jump in there and then, I had something to say, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Perfect.
See, I try to help Ali out whenever I can. He's like the Robin to my Batman.
I like the energy we're starting off with. And for everyone who is new to this is exactly how book club happens. It is a casual conversation, and we allow ourselves to be human in all aspects of it. So this is exactly the right energy. No worries. So here's the question again. Knowing that you have something important to offer your community, but not always having that vision be noticed and valued by the systems that control the spaces that you want to bring it to, how have you all made moves, changed minds, and persevered to create change, which is exactly what you've been able to do. I think about the Mindful Moments room and how that just shifted so many things, but that's one of the ways you can answer that. Atman, you said you were ready, so the floor is yours.
I mean, I'm sure Ali and Andy will elaborate also, but I think it all starts with me and Ali's dad and Andy's dad also, kind of planting the seed that he wanted us to be entrepreneurs and not be part of the system, but, create change in the system. Mm-hmm. He busted his tail to be able to send Ali and I to an independent school, which taught us critical thinking, and, which showed us, all our homies from our neighborhood went to a local elementary school, which is the first school that we did our after school program at, Robert W. Coleman. And, we kind of saw that there was a disparity in the educational system when, Ali and I were youngsters. We were exposed to computers when, computers were only seen in movies with our homeboys. So we saw that there was something that needed to be done to even out that disparity. And, it's really one of those things that, if you see something that's messed up in the world, you can either be a philosopher and, write about, what's wrong, or you can be an activist and try to change what is wrong with, the resources that you have. Our dad provided us with limited resources that he did have, the ability to be able to create organization and not only create change where we saw change need to be made through yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and breathing to help heal trauma, but, creating jobs for folks that may have had to go outside and hustle may not have gotten, high school diplomas, because, a lot of our employees don't have their high school diplomas, yet they are financially independent, able to support themselves, their families, and, help inspire their peers. And, our dad used to always say, be like that ark, like, that Noah's ark that, can help protect folks when the flood is coming. The flood is already here. So, it's like, being the, like he used to say, like, don't earn a check, be a check. And being that check, we were able to hire folks, create change, and inspire other folks to be entrepreneurs as well. Because when people meet us, they were like, man, these dudes, they wild, they have fun, they did it, and we inspire other folks, like, all right, if they can do it, we can do it also. But a lot of times, a lot of people don't realize the grind that goes in to what we have done. But we definitely inspire folks to be able to try to duplicate, what we do, and be able to help out their communities. So that's, my answer to the question.
I appreciate that. And I want to sort of expand it and really dig down into some of what I sense Julia is asking. And I'm so glad you used that analogy of like building an ark, right? So like if we use that language, it had never rained before. And so the whole concept of building an ark didn't make sense to the people who were watching Noah build the ark. They didn't even understand what the concept of rain was, let alone a flood. And so when you all decided to start your program, you talk about how you've been in spaces where people didn't value your vision, didn't respect what it was you were doing, and then copied what you did, and acted as though it was something they created. And so that tension of how did you keep building your arc when you had to deal with so much negativity in the process? I am so glad you gave us context of how you were inspired and how you pushed through and built this amazing foundation, which you have, because now it's national. And I currently live in Baltimore. So as I read the book, I could literally see the faces of the people attached to this work, but the challenges of how you push through at the hardest part, because you speak lightly and often about how you didn't have enough funding to let in certain kids that needed the program, or you could buy someone pants, or someone could buy someone a book bag, but you didn't have enough to address everyone. So how did you all keep building that arc when people doubted the whole vision or the whole need to do any of the that?
I think part of it was, having something important to offer. I think from what we learned and experienced from Uncle Will, it was the most important thing we were offering. You know what I mean? Getting people, like the book is called Let Your Light Shine. So getting people in touch with their true universal self, getting out of like just dealing with their physical environment and their physical self and their thoughts, and taking them to something more expansive and greater than they are. I think that's what pushes us through, is because like we've experienced something through what he was able to remind us of, where it's like, well, I mean, and also we want to share with you, but also when we sat down with him, we promised him that we would teach as many people as possible. He said he wasn't going to sit down and just give us all this information. I can hear, I mean, I'm sure Atman can hear me. So you would be quite remiss if you sat on all this information. You know what I mean? So I think it's just, we knew how important what he had signed us up to do, or we had volunteered to do, was, and how, like, we started this in 2001, and humanity was suffering, the planet was suffering. It's 2023, and all of that is magnified, and it's like gotten exponentially worse. So the practices are needed even more right now. And I think just the system undervaluing it. I mean, the system, I think we realized a long time ago, the system is set up to fail. It's not made for people to succeed, particularly not people of color in urban underserved communities. It's made for them to get into the criminal justice system and to struggle. So, I mean, like anything you can do to alleviate struggling on some level, whether it's spiritually, whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally or physically, like Atman was mentioning, being able to employ people. But I think we just knew, like, we weren't going to change our mind. We were going to persevere. Like, we'll be doing this until we're not in these physical forms anymore. But I think it's just, we knew how important it is for people to know them true selves, because people are walking around like lost and yearning for more and something deeper and a deeper connection, and people feel isolated. So the fact that we can give people, a path back to their true self and a connection to something that can never be taken away from them, even if they're physically by themselves, is something that's really, really important. We brought to a lot of people. We want to bring to even more of humanity.
So glad you built that arc.
Yeah, just to build on that, I mean, I think Ali hit it perfectly on the head. And it's the same thing, basically, Julia, what you're asking when you say knowing that you have something important to offer. I think that's the thing, is we knew what we had was important. We did the practice ourselves. We were the scientists, like Uncle Will said. Don't believe anything I say. Be a scientist. Do it yourself. And so we did it, and the transformation occurred within us. And that's why we got started. We knew, like Ali said, he said, this system that's in place is broken. They're not trying to help us out. It's trying to make us fail. And we knew that, hey, maybe if people start using some of this, that's something important. These techniques, these practices, this awareness of truth and knowledge of self, and knowing and being present and learning how to self-regulate, like this transformation that occurred within us. I think that's why we got it started. And then throughout the entire journey, that's what's made us persevere. Because it doesn't matter if someone copies what we do. It doesn't matter if people doubt us and hate us or think we're weird or strange. Because I mean, when we first started in the first 8 years living on Smallwood, people would come over and be like, yeah, what the hell is wrong with y'all? Like, y'all got some job? You ain't got no real job? Like, you got a degree? Like, what are you doing? But we were blissing all the time because we always knew that we had that something important and that it was our mission. So no matter what, I feel like Ali said, we're going to do this. Like, this is going down. We promised Uncle Will that we would be teachers. We would be the reminders that he was talking about, that conduit. We took on that role, and we now are the reminders, and we are the conduits. And I think that is what always is going to keep us going, no matter what happens. So it doesn't matter what the systems are that control these spaces to us, because it's like, you know what? We're going to keep giving y'all this truth. We're going to keep spreading this love, and hopefully everybody's light will continue to shine. And that's, I can hear Uncle Will singing, this little light of mine right now in my head. I mean, it's powerful, so I just wanted to add those few cents right there, because the fellas had basically said it, but right when she asked the question, in my mind, I said exactly what I was thinking. So I wanted to throw that in.
And it's really one of those things that, like, every time that a hurdle has been put in front of us, the universe has enabled us to thrive, even though the hurdles or the curveballs have been thrown our way. But like when not Baltimore City, the woman that came in and was the head of the wholeness room specialist, or whatever her role was, whenever she came in and created a policy to lock us out of being able to deliver our programs, we could have been like upset and just like sitting in the corner crying and all that stuff. But honestly, we just kept persevering, and it's the reason why our satellite program came to fruition. Our program in Aguasasne, these Mohawk reservation, like, we wouldn't have been thinking on that level if we were focused here on Baltimore. So it really seems like the universe has plans for us. And, even though we may look at it as, somebody throwing a curveball our way, it's really opportunities for us to expand our reach and scope and, all that stuff. And I think that's the way that we have been able to stay afloat, is just, all right, well, if this opportunity is closed off to us, what opportunity is open to us? And it really happens like that all the time. And, if one thing Uncle Will used to always say to us was like, if you're doing the universe's work, it'll make an opportunity for you. And that is really what has happened with the Holistic Life Foundation. And the reason why we're able to expand to as many places, as many cities, as many continents as we have, is because we are doing the universe's work. And, we ain't going to stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah. And just one thing to add to that, like Atman mentioned our dad, but I think one thing our dad was about when we were growing up was mental toughness. Like he was, like being physically strong was one thing, but being mentally tough is another thing. And I know with all those curveballs that keep getting thrown our way and will continuously get thrown our way, I think that mental toughness that he instilled in us as little kids, and as when you're a kid, you're like, what is wrong with him? Like, why does he have us out here doing this? But it's like, and he would always say, like, you guys aren't looking at this. So you guys are looking at this on a physical level, but like, you have to be mentally tougher than any situation that you're going to be in. And I think those days as little kids have led us to the point now where, like, we see people around us crumbling from the things that go on around us and that happen to the Holistic Life Foundation. And you know what I mean? And it's like, we're sitting there like, okay, well, like, all right, well, this is what's going on. This isn't going to stop us. We're going to continue moving forward and look for the solution in the problem. So I think got to give a huge shout out to our dad, Smitty Smith. You'll read about him in the book, but he definitely instilled mental toughness in us as little kids and kind of pushed it until he transitioned. Like, he was always talking about it with us.
Between your father and Uncle Will, you guys had this amazing foundation in terms of letting your light shine, having that motivation, but then that mental toughness and that fortitude. So, Julia, I thank you for the question. And gentlemen, I thank you for opening up the discussion in such a profound and powerful way, because I could not agree more. When you have mental toughness, you can see rejection as redirection, because every closed door, every rejection I've experienced has always inspired me to go higher, or opened up my eyes to opportunities I didn't see before because I was so focused on that one door. So I think we're in a great rhythm, and it only sounds right to hand it off to my dynamic co-moderator, Achara. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Keisha. It's always a pleasure to be in shared sacred space with you, especially discussing such wonderful topics as Let Your Light Shine. So this question comes from Dr. Vance Benton, somebody you may know. What has been the greatest challenge in maintaining the Holistic Life Foundation over the past 2 decades, and what did you do to overcome it? Who wants to take that one?
I'll start. So I think for me, I was thinking about greatest challenge, and I think for like the first thing that popped into my head was realizing that we were going to lose students. I don't think we were mentally prepared for that when we got into this work, and I can distinctly remember every single one of those students and where I was and what happened. I remember our first student that we lost had been away for school. He had been away at school in Texas. His name was Big John. He was like a giant when he was in like the 5th, 6th grade. I mean, this kid's like always been a giant. I remember he was in school in Texas. He came back. Me and Atman were at Uncle Will's. We were walking down to the store to grab some Heinekens, and we see, and his smile and his laugh are infectious. Like, can still see it to this day. He's smiling, he's laughing, he's talking. We're like, man, what are you doing in Baltimore? Like, you need to go back to Texas. He was like, oh no, I came home. This is my family. Da da da. And then like a week later, he had been murdered, shot in the chest with a shotgun, protecting his sister and his sister's friend from somebody at a party. Then I remember it was Ira, a kid that was in our first group of students, motorcycle crash. I remember distinctly being at the Baltimore Museum of Industry for like Big Truck Day. We're there. I remember Elijah, one of the kids, called me. He's like, yo, did you hear what happened? And I'm there with my kids with like hundreds of people around me. I'm like fighting back tears to like kind of calm, like, and then like the kids that passed away in the fire, saving their little brother. So it's like, I don't think we were mentally prepared for, you know what I mean? Like we were having fun, we were helping the kids. And I think that that just being present and loving our students as well as we can and giving them as many skills as possible, because we don't know how long we're going to have them. I think that's one of the things that's helped us maintain, because it's not just physically losing the kids to like them transitioning, but it's also like we've had a lot of kids that might, you know, in Baltimore, there aren't a lot of people that are homeowners. So it might be they're in our school. We've had them for 2 years, then boom, next thing you know, we never hear from them again. Or it might be we go to another place and we're there for a week doing a residency program. We bond with a kid and then boom, we never see him again. So I think keeping that mentality of like that presence coming from that place of love and empowering people with the practice, I think has been one of the things that just emotionally and energetically has helped us maintain the Holistic Life Foundation for so long.
That was a great response, Ali. I was going to say the greatest challenge was me and Andy carrying you, but that was a good one.
That's because y'all muscles are measly and y'all need to do more push-ups and get to the gym. That's the only reason it would be tough carrying me.
Hey, Ali, don't put me in Ali. I didn't say that. I thought it was great though. Our jokes are getting better and better.
What a follow-up to that really heavy answer. Let me
No, I do want to add just something
We
else.
try to keep it light though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that was brilliant, Ali, and it didn't even hit it. It's crazy. Immediately, maybe just because I've been in front of the computer all day today and answering emails, that the business hat comes on. So when I even saw this question beforehand, and I'd prepped some kind of like mild responses for some of the questions, I was like, you know what? Funding. I'm gonna be real, y'all. That's that for us. We're a nonprofit organization, and that has been in my mind. Like right when I read the question, like, so I'll be the one to do the marketing and promotions. To anyone out there listening, any angel donors or funders out there that want to support us and help us out. I mean, we are doing amazing work. We have been for over 20 years internationally throughout the nation. Helping kids help themselves. Like it says, over 5,000 people. Week in Baltimore. I'm throwing out there funding for sure. But besides that, I would say, because that was the first one was screaming at me, was funding. That's why I know Dr. Ben's laughing. He's like, yep, yes, yep. but also, staff turnover and in a way that's kind of a good way. Atman mentioned it, that we are providing abilities and opportunities for individuals to be economically stable and efficient, and financially be able to live lives and to create families and to feed their children and have a roof over their heads. And it's great for us to be able to see these individuals grow, which we've seen, and we read in the book that we've had them since kindergarten, some of them, and now they're in their mid-20s, and they're still with us and they're working. And the transformation that this organization and these practices have had in their lives, they want to do that. They want to pay back, right? They want to give back, do the same thing. But after a while, inevitably, and blessings to them, they get themselves together, and they have a life, and now they're able to kind of deal with the world a little better, and they're able to create these families, and then they move on, and we want them to, right? That's what we're here for. We're supposed to be that, kind of like that catapult for them to be able to get out of the muck and to wipe the dust off their light so it can shine, so they can let their light shine and be the brightest versions of themselves. But then sometimes it's difficult because then some of our best instructors, the ones that have been with us the most, they end up having to bounce, and then we had to bring on new people. So it provides more opportunities, like you were saying earlier, when we're faced with it, because then we could usually find more gems, more diamonds in the rough, and then we train them up and give them the skills and practices to do what they need to do to start impacting their communities. But eventually, it's gonna happen where they're gonna go as well. So I know, just organizationally wise, administration wise, I feel like that's one of the things that's been kind of tough, is keeping our instructors with us and continuing to spread the love together. I mean, they're doing it on their own, ideally, without the organization, but just keeping, especially our best instructors, sometimes it's kind of difficult.
And I think building off of what Andy was saying, just people poaching our teachers, like wanting them to kind of like do the work without having to come through our organization and, cutting costs and, all that stuff. But that's one of the things that Uncle Will always told us about. He was like, look, like y'all can get upset over stuff like that, or y'all can just, be gracious that y'all get conduits of information, and that the information and the practices are getting out there. So it's really one of those things that we had to be unattached to. He would, always say, do the work and don't get attached to the results. And that's one of the ways that we had to do that, is just, when, I mean, we learn about we learn about like IP lawyers and non-complete causes, but we didn't know about that back in the day. But it's really one of those things where, looking at it, and when that stuff does happen, just being appreciative that the information, the knowledge, the love, and the tools for survival are getting out there. So it's, we could get upset about, organizations and schools poaching our teachers, but it's really one of those things that, it taught us a lesson about IP and, non-complete causes. And it's also speaks volumes about, how we are transferring information, how we're being conduits of light to people that come through our programs, and even beyond us, they're able to sustain themselves. So I think that is a great challenge that we've had to overcome, and that we are cool with, but we are getting non-complete clauses and all that stuff to protect ourselves going forward.
Thank you for sharing that. So we have just not being prepared, that not thinking, oh, what does it look like to lose students, right? Not just what does it look like to save lives and encourage and empower students to live this life of abundance, right? And letting their light shine. But what would it look like if we actually lost some along the way? There wasn't sort of a sense of preparedness for that. And then also that was a challenge. And then funding has been a challenge, and teachers being sort of poached, and then not really knowing the sort of the legal navigation of what it's like when you first start out a business in regards to intellectual property and so forth. So I hear all of those challenges, and the way that you have overcome it is, it sounds like you're just really just learning, resourcing, being present, right? Is what I'm hearing you say, is just really being in that sort of flow of being that conduit for what is happening, right? Currently, what has happened before, what's happening currently, and how that is going to affect your pathway moving forward, and really believing in the hope that that connection to self via spiritual, mental, and emotional also connects you to others in the world around you, and that abundance, that light that you're shining into the world through every person, through every kid. Dr. Benton, I just wanted to give you the floor if you wanted to elaborate on your question or respond to anything that they just shared with us.
Thank you for that opportunity. Actually, they pretty much addressed the question. I was not prepared for Ali's response in terms of losing students and losing participants. As a urban school principal, former urban school principal, I had many experiences, unfortunately, of losing students to violence, to suicide, or whatnot. So I can appreciate that response. I also can appreciate what Andy noted in terms of just the funding challenge, as well as personnel challenge, retaining and keeping staff members for a long amount of time. But I do know that as a former urban school leader, I always told the staff, when we get where we are going to get, everybody that's on the ship right now won't be on that ship when we get there. And that's just a part of reality, and that's just understanding. And I made a note that I might not even be on that ship when it get there. But with faith, it will get there. So the work is evident that they believe in the work. It's evident that I believe in the work and joining the organization. But I witnessed a lot of what they had overcome. So that's why I wanted to pose that question, so others could hear the responses.
Yeah, I think it's so important, as someone who, I serve as a board member of an organization that works with people, just giving them a space to be held, right? And witnessed, right? Their pain just being witnessed. One of the things that I loved hearing and learning about throughout the book is, especially, it's that the story of when you showed up and bought the young man a pair of pants, and he was not expecting that, right? He wasn't expecting you to buy him a pair of pants. What he was expecting was you throwing him out of the program. And that's just like being present and sort of learning as you go, and just intuitively, that just felt like it was a very intuitive thing that y'all did. Like, it wasn't like that was a pre-planned, if we see somebody struggling, particularly with the pants, we're going to go take them to the store and buy. It sounds like very much of what you're doing is intuitive, and just literally from what has been poured into you from Will and from your family, and to just watch your organization and read about your organization as it's grown. Personally, I hope that that's what we can do in the organization that I help to lead, is that we intuitively show up and we just hold space for people without judgment. I'm wearing a t-shirt now that says compassion has no agenda. And it just that is literally what I feel that Holistic Life Foundation is about just showing up and witnessing and holding pain and letting people know that through that mental toughness and the spiritual and mental and emotional connection to self and to others around, that they can overcome. So with that, thank you for answering this question. Did you want to say something, Ali?
Yeah, so one thing that didn't make it in the book was that the reason that he thought he was going home was because we had taken him home plenty of times, because he was a wild kid. Like, he was big, he was giant, he was mean when things did. So like there were days, I remember specific days like come on, let's get in the car, we're going home. So when I would take him home, because it was just like, you are being so disruptive right now and disrespectful and like hurting your peers. But that wasn't his fault. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that, like, you know, once he said what was going on, you see the tears in his eyes. It was like, all right, well, he just needs some new pants. Like, that was easy. And I think what we did was very instinctive, and kind of just second nature for so long, that I think people would come visit us and we would make it look so easy, that people would be like, oh, we can do this too. And they would get their asses kicked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, trying to do what we were doing or trying to work with the kids we were working with, because they didn't have a personal practice. Like, 100% of what it was that we had a very, very deep personal practice, so we could like listen with our hearts, listen with our ears, listen energetically, and just serve the kids what they needed just from being present and loving. And that was all it took. And it was just like, you know, it was simple. It was like it just flowed at that point. And again, there would be tons of people that would come by and they were like, this is so simple. And they would come in and they would volunteer for one day and they'd be like, nah, this ain't for me. Like, I'm out, I'm done. Thank you very much. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing. But it like we weren't special. Like, we just had a personal practice. Like, we were very in touch with what was going on. Like, let your light shine. We were in touch with that. We were letting it shine. It was just kind of, the work was flowing through us.
Thank you for that specific nugget right there. We had a personal practice, and that is through which everything outpours. And it's important to know that it starts with us and then it outflows from that. It starts from the light that is within, and then really getting in tune with that light and then letting that light shine. And it sounds like the part of Dr. Benton's question of how did you overcome it? A lot of that has to do with your own personal practice. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Dr. Keisha, would you like to take the next question?
Thank you. And before I do, Atra, thank you for leading the way. I did not extend an opportunity to Julia to have her feedback. And so when you gave that opportunity to Dr. Benton, I realized what a wonderful idea. So tech team, bear with me. But Julia, I would love to extend the same opportunity to you in terms of if you have any feedback on how they courageously and honestly answer your question.
I will just say that was really thorough,
Wait.
and you answered more than I even thought I asked. So I feel like I won in that one, because really I was just like, how do you make people listen so you can get in there with the stuff that people need? But I think you answered that and so much more. So thank you, Dr. Keisha. That's totally fine. These gentlemen have it down.
Don't they? It's a great conversation. Well, with that being said, let's get into Vita's question, which I've been looking forward to. In your book, you vividly and evocatively describe the intersections of race and poverty and how they contribute to structural inequity and decreased quality of life. I am curious to hear whether you noticed other contributors like sexual orientation, disability, and gender identity play into these as well. How do these intersections occupy space in your programs? And working with the generations you're working with, it is inevitable that these intersections naturally flow into it. So I can't wait to hear your responses.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head, Dr. Keisha. Like, it's inevitable, right? There's no way that these did not intersect and occur. I would say, as I reflect more, not as much as prominent as it is nowadays. Nowadays it's like right smack in our face. Of course, in terms of gender inequity and just women not being treated the way that they should be, and how that's been going on for ages and ages and centuries and beyond. And I think that I think that's extremely evident, but I think extremely more now in terms of gender identity and sexual orientation. You do see it within our students. And I think one of the things I think that a lot of the stuff that we're reminding them of is self-worth and learning to love themselves. I think that is a key component when they are facing the adversity and traumas that may have came from these situations, or just these concepts in general of what's going on in their lives. I think that something we notice very often is it's very hard for an individual to love others if they can't love themselves.
Yeah.
And a big part of what Uncle has always talked to us about is, hey, who are you? And understanding that light within you and learning to love that light within you. When you're really able to do that, it's so much easier to look at others and to see the light within them and to love them as much as you love yourself.
I got it.
I think that's a huge.
Sorry, so sorry to interrupt, but when you said that, I had to do it. Can you please also blend in your work on love zombies as you?
Of course, yeah, of course. Well, I mean, that's just some. Well, first of all, Ali Atman and I just like zombies. Like zombie movies, Walking Dead, that type of stuff. That's just something that we've always been down with. Yeah, you could probably find like a bug out bag in all our houses just in case the zombie apocalypse or the world ends. We're gonna survive. We're gonna make it. All right. Okay. So zombies in general for us is pretty cool. And then the idea that it's Uncle Will. Uncle Will always, just talking to us about the light within us, our real self, the infinite, omniscient, omnipotent, real being that is us, beyond our skin, beyond our sex, beyond our gender, beyond our any disabilities, our physical, but beyond any of that stuff, to look beyond all that, because the light within us is who we really are, and to love that, right? That's the thing that he L-O-V-E, L-O-V-E. That's what he would always say all the time. Most powerful force in the universe, right? And it's uniting, and I think the idea just came from us watching zombies all the time and being like, well, people would say to us, we can feel the love when the three of y'all walk into a room. We don't have to say it, they can just feel it from us. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted, and wherever we went, for people to feel that. And that to us was the infection. It sounds so negative, but it's like that was the infection, right? That's what we were doing. We were spreading that love. So it's almost like if you can walk into a room. I remember Uncle used to talk about like auras and how he could impact. He went to a party once and he's hanging out, and the vibe's kind of like, and he says he just spreads his aura out and like charged everyone in the room to make it a good time. And everyone started dancing, and like he ramped up the party, right? And that's kind of what we're doing. We're just reminding people about who they are. And when you start learning to love yourself, and then you look at everyone else as you and you love them, I think that's when that infection is starting to occur, because then everyone walks in the room and they're spreading the love and they feel the love. And the idea of love zombies is, in zombies, you bite one another, right? Now they go and they're running around like biting people. Ours is a lot less bloody and gory, right? Ours is more go around. Once you get infected, now you got the love bug, right? Now you go, and wherever you go, you're spreading. I used to always see it like they do in those zombies movies, where it'll be the map of the world, and like you see like the little dot, and then it starts spreading, and all the red starts spreading. Like that's what we're doing, but we're doing that with love, and that's a big part of it. And I think that unfortunately, with what's been going on in the world for ages, in terms of the mistreatment of individuals based on race or sex, gender, wealth, all these demographic things, these outer, right, this external stuff, and then now with people, the conversation, I think, with sexual orientation being such a big push in the force. It's so important, because I think that was something that for a long time individuals weren't able to express, right? Sex is a whole new topic in the world nowadays. Back in the days, the people just try to make it, we only do this to make babies. That's not what's going on in the world anymore, y'all. Sex is more than just when you make babies, right? It's a way you can express yourself. And I think that a large part of what we're doing is reminding people to love themselves, no matter who they are, what they want to do, how they want to express themselves. Be you and love you. And Ali says, I still, whenever I go, I think it's one of the things he says, there ain't no one else can be better Ali than Ali. He's the best at being Ali. And can no one step to him when it comes to being Ali, right? And that's what people need to remember is only you can be the best version of you. You're the best at being you, and love yourself. Right. And then when it happens, everyone's loving themselves and they're gonna look at each other like, well, I love you too. And then we're just loving everybody. And the love zombies end up saving the world because we unite everybody.
I really think that's such a brilliant analogy, because when you look at it in terms of our current context, when we refuse to acknowledge the light in each other, when we refuse to extend common courtesies like greeting people when we see them, acknowledging the humanity in a stranger, that does sort of kill a part of your identity as a human and your connection to other humans. And the deeper you go in that refusal to let your natural light shine and that refusal to acknowledge the light in others, the more you decompose in terms of whatever the radiance of your light and being is. So I really appreciate how you all took a very clear visual and could apply it with so much depth. I know there may be others who want to contribute to the conversation, so the floor is open, and I'll just approach it that way. It's completely optional.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the question, which is a great question, and I was thinking about us when we started this, and like we were responsible for some of this occupying space in our programs early on, like unintentionally. It was like, when we started our program, we thought it'd be easier to work with boys, so we had only boys in our program. This was for a long time. We only had boys. And then the girls in our neighborhood, the younger sisters of the younger, like just like a second group of students were serving kids from our neighborhood, and the young girls, the younger sisters of the boys that were in our program just came to us and like, we're in your after school program. We were like, no, we got all, they were like, no, we're in your after school program. And it was just like seeing them come in and take power and like just you know what I mean? Just they took the initiative to join. They were like, we see what's going on and we want part of it. And they were in, and it got to a point during that with that group of students where there were more females than males and more girls than boys in our program. So it was like, huh. And then the craziest thing was that like most of our best teachers are the young ladies that joined us. You know what I mean? It was just like we were totally missing out on an entire group of students, an entire group of kids from our neighborhood and from the other schools. And then it turned out that, like the best student at doing the stretch pose ever in the history of the Holistic Life Foundation was a young lady named Janasia Brown. She's in our TEDx talk with us. And the only time she lost was to another little girl because she wanted to let her win. You know what I mean? So it's just like, there were definitely things that we were doing unintentionally that were, we thought, we went into it with the best intentions always. Like we were going into it to help people. But I think it was just our lack of information, our lack of knowledge about what was really going on in the world and just like our limited experience. But I think as we've grown as an organization and teachers, we're a lot more intentional around all of these things and like just making sure that everyone feels welcome, everyone feels included, and everyone's being served by our programs.
I just want to throw there real quick so that everyone, because I know we know the story, but I really want, like when Ali just said it, it just I could visualize and see it. So you can imagine there's this stretch pose, this posture he's talking about. It's a difficult pose. It's like you're holding your arms, your legs, your head up 6 inches. It's very difficult. You have to have really strong core strength. And we would, we like to challenge the kids to make it have fun. So we would be like, all right, anyone that can hold it longer than one of us, we go into schools that were tough kids and like, I'll give you $1. None of the kids can hold it longer than the 3 of us, right? So then we started getting the kids start battling against each other. You get awarded if you win. And like I said, Janasia always won. And she just destroyed people, right? And these guys think they were so tough. oh, whatever, we gonna win this. And we knew, we're like, ain't no way you're beating Nene. She gonna smash y'all today. Like, this is it's easy, right? So she would always win. And it was just one of the most beautiful things. Because like you said, it was a little pre-K kid, right? It was Crystal, right? And Crystal's sitting there and you can see the kid's legs are dropping. Boom, boom. And Nene's, she's stiff. Like she's not gonna drop. She's going, and everyone's dropping. And you could see little Crystal like sitting there and her body starting to shake. And it's just her and Nene, neck and neck. And you can see Nene kind of look at us and just drop. And the entire gym is like, whoa! They go and they pick the girl up. And it was just like, oh, I just wanted to share because it was like the most beautiful, heartfelt image I can see right now. The love that we had in that gymnasium and the family, and how much we cared about each other and always looking out. And like for her, like she saw that light within Chris. She saw the light within everyone. And she wanted her to feel that, it was just amazing. So I just wanted to share because it just made me think about it. It's such a beautiful experience.
I'm so glad you did, because I wonder, thinking about the personal practice that you all have taught them within your curriculum and what that moment of intersection must have been for her to see this pre-K child and think about what it must mean for her to have this moment and for her to clearly let you all know that she's not an ego, because she was able to give herself to that moment because she saw a much bigger intersection of possibility if the pre-K student won. So I also hear that story and see it as yet another brilliant example of how effective your work is.
It's like, just to tap in, it's one of those things. I forgot if Andy or Ali said it, but it's like, once these kids actually tap into loving themselves, that empathy just blossoms. And that is really what happened. Like, she is the girl that was from the same projects that Freddie Gray was from, and her clothes would be tattered. She would come to school, kids would make fun of her, she would knock kids out, older, younger, girls, guys, it didn't matter, like, because her brother could box, and she would knock everybody out. But she dove into the practice and tapped into that foundation of self-love. And it eventually turned to, in the book, we talk about how she jacked this little girl up and she was about to like knock the girl out. And then she saw us in the principal walking into gymnasium at the time, walking towards there. And she was like cocked back. And she looked at us, looked at the girl, looked at us, looked at the girl. And you could tell she was serious because she pointed her pinky at the little girl. Was like, you better be glad I do my meditation. And sat down and did her breathing and meditation. So like, like hanging out with like the neuroscientists and the trauma experts that we like, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, like people talk about as far as, neuroplasticity, which it can work for the positive or the negative. We saw her rewiring her brain through the practice in time to be able to resolve conflicts peacefully. And through the practice, it led to her really realizing that she didn't need to feed her ego by whooping everybody's ass in the stress pose. She saw how it would uplift this little girl to actually take a dive. And, like Andy said, it was the most beautiful thing that we've ever seen. Like, everybody like putting her over, putting the little girl over their head and like cheering for her. And, she felt, so blessed, empowered, and, all that stuff, all because Janasia was loving herself, which enabled her to empower or be empathetic towards other folks. And that's what happens with the practice. It heals your own trauma and helps you heal other people's trauma.
And
it's the post-traumatic growth for me. It's the post-traumatic growth for me. By all means, the floor is yours.
One of the craziest things is like, even like a few months before, Janasia would have beat her and then danced around her. You know what I mean? After she crushed her, she would have celebrated in her face. And like going from that to like taking one for the team, you know what I mean? For the greater good of the whole family that was in that gym, was beautiful to see.
Mm. All right, Zita. I mean, you have a plate full of responses. Where do you want to go next? Like, what are your thoughts? Because they served you properly and gave you food to take home. So What
So much. So much. This is why I'm against diet culture, because of all this food. There were a couple of sections of the book that really spoke to me, and the context for this question really emerged from the conversation about cleaning your own backyard, right? And about the willingness, I think, of a lot of white-bodied people to jump into the mix and say, how do we help? And recognizing when and where that's appropriate. Being autistic, being a member of the queer community, being the parent and a gender parent of a trans non-binary child, there's a lot of intersections that we have to navigate that same conversation in, right? And say, like, listen, there are times and places where outside support is welcome, and then there are times and places where we have to heal inside as a community to take care of our own work. So at the center, one of the major values that we brought to the table was nothing about us without us, right? We are led by representation, and every program is led specifically by a member from that community, and paired with experts that might be from external if we need to, but our transgender members lead our trans programs, our autistic members lead our autism specific programs, our queer members lead our queer programs. And so that led us to a disparity as a bunch of white-bodied people in race. And so I think that's where your book was so powerful, filling in some gaps on how we can start to reach out and look in our own community to fill this very important missing piece in our organization, which is still very white-centric and needs to expand its scope and its professional base. So thank you for that. Your story about the young girl and just the gym exploding for her. I'm also the parent of a non-speaking autistic child. He is 13 now in grade 8, but when he did his grade 6 graduation, it was still very early in the conversations on inclusion. And we spent years kind of fighting the school system, saying, this is good for everyone, right? This is good for everyone. We heal in community, we learn in community. And when he did his grade 6 graduation, the school originally didn't even invite him. They weren't sure he would want to go. And we were like, no, of course he wants to go and graduate with his class. And when he got his diploma, the whole gymnasium stood up and just absolutely exploded for him. And he turned around and he lifted his hands and he flapped, and you could see this community and this language that children seem to have that we just as adults, I think, forget to learn to understand. But there's so much to be learned by children's ability to approach each other with unconditional positive regard. And I think sometimes the world stifles that, but when it can just exist openly. Anyway, it was a really beautiful memory. So thank you for evoking that for me, because it brought me to tears when you shared the story. So yeah.
Just need to let that breathe. Unconditional positive regard. And so out of respect for just what we're building, I'm not going to speak. I'm going to take a few seconds. Like Linda Ty has taught me, I'm going to take up space, and I invite anyone else to take up space with me and just breathe in what has been shared so far. Before we jump into the next thing, let's just have a moment of collective, unconditional, positive regard for where we are in the conversation right now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sita. Atra, it's in this beautiful space that I hand it back to you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
it's your question. You get to.
My question that I get to ask. Yes. I'm glad that I get to ask it from that collective positive space that you just named. So as I said, I serve as a district supervisor here. So communities in Florida, yes, I said the state Florida, are often governed by community development districts, which are known as CDDs. These districts oversee million-dollar budgets to ensure the maintenance of recreational facilities for families. Many of these recreational facilities, I'll add, are where kids go to just be kids. What would a community program look like for residents who desire collective healing and less punitive consequences for youth in their communities who quote unquote break rules? Because the rules are established by the CDD while on CDD property. So I'm curious, what would a community program look like for residents who desire collective healing? Because currently now the punitive consequences for breaking rules, such as jumping a fence to get access to the volleyball court, or your friend lets you in and they're not supposed to, is 30 days to 6 months of suspension of not being allowed to be on recreational property grounds.
I guess I'll jump in.
I'm gonna let the professionals. I'm sorry, Andy. I just want to say this real quick because we'll let y'all talk. When I read this and when I heard you make mention of the amount of suspension days on the last book, I was a bit thrown because there are laws that I think govern amounts of days of suspension, out of school suspension and whatnot, especially if it's titled a suspension, quote unquote, rather being titled an expulsion. So those carry different amounts of time away. And for the infractions that you made mention of earlier, previously, and the one you made mention of today, sounds like not enough for suspension. But even if it's a suspension, I don't know about the amount of days that you were alluding to. So with all that being said, and me speaking on that ignorance, I would say before the co-founders dive into this question, because this is a pretty deep question, it sounds like the community, those who govern the community development district needs trauma-informed meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and the practices that we're speaking to. That's what came to my mind initially, because it sounds like it appears, let me say it that way, it appears in your writing, your conversation, coming from your energy, with all due respect, it appears that there's a lot of frustration, anger, resentment, all those things that are built up in the adults. So it feels like there's a lot of trauma going on with the adults, and that trauma is being trickled down, if you will, to the children, because it hasn't been resolved within them. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And there is a resistance to that training or that information being received. It's more of a it is our responsibility to keep everyone safe. And so when rules are broken, that is our way of keeping everyone safe. So one such thing is when you allow children in areas in which they are not supposed to be at, because they're supposed to be a certain age, 14 years old, you have to be 14 in order to be in the area. And so when a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old lets another 13-year-old in, very close age, then it's immediate. And then if they're resistant or if they lie about how they got in, then there's additional punitive restriction put on them because of the language used. Let's put it that way. So I'm just curious, because we have a group of residents who want to get together and do something. They just don't know what to do. So my question to those that have walked this path and sort of have a program, what would that look like, just from ground zero, for residents to take action and support their community, since the CDD is not?
So I feel like collective healing, has to be looked at holistically, and not like in bits and pieces and in chunks, but it's got to be looked at holistically. And we've done some work in Florida, and just Florida is like has a lot of the same problems as Baltimore. It's just hotter. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of the same things going on. But I mean, just thinking about what a space would look like in a community, I think first the community would have to have some ownership over it. So that they can, like, you know what I mean? We always say the best solutions are homegrown. So like the community is going to know what the community's problems are. And they might not have the entire idea of how to heal, but I think whoever's funding this is going to have to listen to the community and like have them come up with some of the solutions. I think for the young people that are there, some green space, like kids are so disconnected from nature, and there's a lot of healing aspects to being in green space and being connected to Mother Nature, that a lot of kids in cities don't get. I think having some adults there that are present and loving that can listen to the kids, because most kids don't feel heard. I mean, that's one of the things we learn almost instantly in the mindful moment room is that kids don't feel listened to. And if, most of what we do in the room, it's the practices, but I think the most impactful thing is the mindful listening and the mirroring. So the kids actually feel heard and feel empowered. And then you build a relationship and then they can move out from there. I mean, we're the Holistic Life Foundation, so of course, there's got to be some yoga going on, some yoga, some mindfulness, some meditation, some breath work. All that's got to be going on. And kids have a lack of physical activity. Like I think kids need to be active, even above and beyond the yoga, like just running off some steam, running off some energy. Like kids are, like I feel like nowadays kids have to be very intentional about going out and playing sports. But when we were kids, we just went outside and played all day. And that's not really happening. You know what I mean? Like we were literally like going inside was a punishment. Video games were for days when it rained. You know what I mean? Like, and now it's just like you have to set up play dates for kids, and they got to be in a sports league. It's not the fact that like they're just constantly active. So I think it's got to be holistic and access to fresh food. I think access to fresh food also has to happen too. And in Florida, y'all growing season's got to be year round. So I mean, like y'all can grow food all. Y'all don't have to worry about canning or preserving nothing. But I think it's just looking at all the layers of what kids in communities need and finding a way to meet as many of those needs as possible in a way that's going to help the kids heal.
And just another quick ad, like a kid is getting punished for climbing a fence to be included in some, activities, or like Ali was saying, some physical, experiences. Like, should that really be punished? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like figuring out how to make things more inclusive to everybody, just because no one, like, no matter their age, no matter their, sexual orientation, no matter what, like, divisions that you can put them in, like, they have to feel included and have access to what is going on, because, like, the behavior shaping institutions are failing our kids, whether it's the family, whether it's the church, whether it's the schools, whether, government, whether it's this, all of them are failing. So if they are looking for, that way to feel committed and that belonging, like, why are we going to punish them if they needed to feel belong so much that they have climbed a fence to be able to get there? So I think the adults that are making these rules need to analyze what they're doing to adjust the rules to make these kids feel or have more accessibility to the things that they want access to. Because, like, really, like, you're going to punish a kid for climbing a fence to be part of a community association event, like, that doesn't, that if you use your common sense, that does not make sense.
You were talking about James and Kobe. I feel like that ties in perfectly to what you were saying.
Yeah, so it was these two kids in our program that were part of another after school program, and they left their after school program and started coming to our program. And the principal came into the gym where we were, and you're like, where is Kobe and James Pettifor? And she was looking real mad, pointing at him. And the kids came up, they were deep into their yoga practice, and then they came to like the door was at the back of the gym. They came to the back of the gym to talk to the principal, and the principal was like, you all supposed to be in this other after school program. Why are you here? And the kids were like, well, because they love us. And, the principal couldn't say anything. And that's how strong the power of love is. It's going to make a kid leave their after school program to join a program where they are loved. It's going to make them climb a fence to be part of, whatever activity is going on over that fence. So let's figure out how to make it more inclusive.
I love that. Thank you so much for all of that information. And I will definitely be in touch with HLF quite soon. I should say that. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Keisha.
I don't want to go to my question. With the time we have left, I think the highest and best use of this time is to stay right here in this space. And I'll add to this question. And I'll also look right into this camera and talk to the YouTube audience and say this for anyone connected, not just to Florida, but anywhere in the United States, where these pervasive systems have been able to successfully suspend children, and block their access to education and opportunity. There is a dire need for more programming like HLF to address those students who have been pushed out. Whether we see ourselves bringing them back in, the suspension does not address what trauma, what rejection, what harm they suffered while they were suspended. And I could not think of a better organization to begin to address those type of issues in terms of the systemic flaw that occurs when we just bring students back as though nothing happened. And so I also want to flip the coin on this question and ask, not from the perspective of the adults, but what type of services can be extended to the students who have had to suffer this harm from a position of no power, because they are at the mercy of traumatized, hurt, yet powerful adults who are reckless with that authority at their emotional, spiritual, physical, educational expense. That's a lot to answer in a few minutes, but I serve hot plates. Catch it.
I think that goes to what, catching that hot plate. I think that goes what to Atman was saying about behavior shaping institutions are failing children, right? And so what do we do when we recognize this failed, the impact of that failure on sort of including a child back into their flow of what they shouldn't have been excluded from in the first place? And what does that look like?
Yeah, the floor is open, gentlemen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well, particularly how people can buy your services, support your services, fund your work so that your services can go further.
So I think, when it was just three of us trying to do the work ourselves, we were very limited in what we could do. I think we've been very intentional about building a strong team, infrastructurally, administratively, and also our programmatic team. So I think right now we're at a good point to expand and do more sustainable things in other places. Like, again, when it was just the three of us, we can go and do a residency program at a school and then come back. We could go and do a training and come back. But I think we've set ourselves up with like our administrative team is strong. Everybody does their job really well, and everyone complements each other really well. So I think we're at a point where going to a new place and setting up shop isn't really that difficult for us at this point. And we know how to do it very well. I feel like our Mohawk up at Akwesasne, our satellite program's a perfect example. You know what I mean? Like, we can go and set up shop and make it sustainable and support the local community. And there's even room for growth there. I mean, we do travel. We travel all over the world to train and help people set up shop and facilitate programs. And I think, I'd say with the amount of hours we put in working in Baltimore and around the world, with the teachers that we've had, with the mentors that we have, and the amount of time we put in our own personal practice, we're the best at what we do. You know what I mean? And it's not like an egotistical thing. I think it's a thing that's just like, when you put in enough hours and it's something that you care about and you love, you're going to be excellent at it. And it's something that we love to do. So I think, like reaching out to us to set up a program or to help you fix the programs that you're running. Because, like there's a lot of that mindfulness stuff going on, or people that want to teach from a curriculum, or people that want to, they say they're teaching yoga to just teach people to stretch. They're saying they're trauma informed, but they're not really trauma informed at all. I think there's just ways that these practices, there's a reason that yoga's been around, depending on how you look at history, for thousands of years or tens of thousands of years. There's a reason it's sustained for all this time. So there's definitely stuff to help you heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And it's all just sitting right there. And again, we have been blessed with some amazing, amazing teachers. And I think Uncle Will, the way, like, we wouldn't be into this if it wasn't for Uncle Will. You know what I mean? Like, he was the perfect teacher for us. Like, there was no one else that could have gotten us into yoga but that dude right there. Like, he was the one. Like, he was, we're big Star Wars nerds, so he was Yoda sitting in the Dagobah swamp waiting for Luke Skywalker to show up. We showed up and he was like, it's about time, let's get it. And we got into it. So it was just, I think we are really good at what we do, and we can help people to set up programs in a way that, we've been saying this for a long time. Our goal is to not be needed. Like, I think we're that good at what we do that we could go, you can drop the three of us off anywhere on the planet and we will help you set up a program, and then we can step away, and it will be in such a sustainable way that it will continue functioning on its own, and you would be constantly creating more teachers. I think it's, again, Aquasasne. Like, it's not like it's just the people that we train. It's the way that we teach them to teach is to create teachers, that reciprocal teaching model, like getting people to love themselves, getting people to connect to themselves, getting people to really understand how to use the practices in a practical way, where they can just like constantly be like helping themselves, but also like, wait a minute, that person's suffering over there. I know I can go teach them this breath and they can alleviate that suffering. Or I know if this person comes in stressed out, I can sit them down and they can meditate, and then they can alleviate their suffering. So I think it's just the way that we were, the way that we were taught is very intense. It's set up the way that we teach. So I think it's just, it kind of just, it's set up for success and expansion. I think that's what we've been building towards. And again, I think our team is strong enough now that we can go ahead and start to do that.
Hey, Ali, do you want to mention the expansion efforts with the CGI stuff?
Oh yeah, so part of that, thank you, is our the Clinton Foundation. We made a commitment to them through their Clinton Global Initiative project, where it is a part of that expansion. We're going to go to 6 cities and set up mindful moment programs, but it's not going to be us facilitating the program. We're going to go to each of those 2 cities, and we're going to train 2 people from those cities to be able to facilitate the program. They'll come to Baltimore. They'll get some training. We'll be doing plenty of site visits to make sure the program's run with fidelity. And Trauma Research Foundation, that's part of what Bruce was talking about, is going to be doing an evaluation, a study on the project. We're working out the details, what it's going to look like, but we know that the program kills suspension numbers and office referrals. We know that it destroys those numbers. In every school that we're at, those numbers drop to some schools down to 0, and they get rid of their in-school suspension rooms. All this stuff happens, but we also know anecdotally there's a lot more happening. The kids are healing from their trauma. The kids are doing better with their mental health. They're doing better with depression, anxiety, and things along those lines. The teachers it's preventing burnout with the teachers. The teachers are like, they're on the edge, ready to quit, and they get into the practice and they're stopping that. And even the people that we train to facilitate the programs, it changes their entire lives. In Baltimore, up at Aquasasne. So we want to see what that actually is doing and like get some numbers behind it, because we've got great stories. But so it'll start in January. We'll go out and we'll do like a soft launch. We'll go to all 6 of these cities to facilitate programs at the schools, to recruit staff, to train some mindful ambassadors in the school. And it'll be like, we'll really hit the ground running with it in the 2024-2025 school year, where the programs will be set up and they'll be running, and they're going to do excellent. I mean, again, wherever the Mindful Moment program is run with fidelity, it has amazing results. If it's not run the right way, you're not going to get the results you want. But the program is set up to succeed by having the kids have someone that can listen to them, be present with them, connect to them, and then give them practices to help them heal and deal with whatever's going on, the inner turmoil, the outer turmoil, and then they go from there.
I think that was the best use of the time. I could think of no better way to thank you for being here than to give you the space to really talk about and advocate for the work that you do and invite others to get involved by paying for your services or supporting your services through financial contributions. With that, I will hand it over to Emma.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh my goodness. What a privilege to be a witness to this conversation, the brilliance that each of our panelists and moderators and authors have brought to the conversation. And from the final response to the last question, what can come from this conversation, right? And what can grow from these gatherings of great minds and great hearts and great people. So I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Ali, Atman, and Andres, for spending this time with us and sharing such valuable knowledge and work in the field of trauma that you do and the gift of your book to the world. Throughout the conversation, I just kept feeling my heart swell, at various points that each of you were speaking. I just thought, wow, this is what we need. And I'm just so grateful that you're here to provide it. And I can't thank our panelists enough, our seasoned panelists who have returned over the seasons, and our newer panelists, looking at you, Dr. Benton. And again, we thank our absolutely phenomenal moderators, Atra and Dr. Keisha. Book Club is so special because of you. And Book Club is the best work that I've done in my career, and from what comes of it, and the conversations that come of it. And you are the stewards of those conversations. And I just feel so privileged to know you and to be in community with you and to witness, the brilliance that you bring out of those who gather for these discussions. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the TRF team who all make the book club happen. It is a community effort. It is a group effort, and it is so worthwhile. So for those watching and for those who are present in the Zoom room, we would love to hear about your experience. Feel free to reach out and share any feedback with us at our email programs@traumaresearchfoundation.org. And again, thank you to everyone who has made this book club such a strong success.